Thank you very much. Right, and Matti.
That's correct. And with that said, exactly, we would now like to welcome Jakub Fiałkowski and Mateusz Wojczak on the stage, who are going to tell us about building Flutter apps at scale. And trust me, this talk is going to be amazing. You're going to learn a lot. So especially if you're on the stream, stick around. And one big round of applause for the speakers.
Cool.
Okay, can you hear me well?
And me? Yeah.
Okay, so hi, welcome to Flutter at Scale, the talk about how we build a large-scale mobile banking app for Credit Agricole with over 20 Flutter developers and over 200 people involved in the project using Flutter framework. This talk is going to be not so deep into code. It's more about how to manage this whole project, but you're going to see us sharing our thoughts and experience from our year-long journey with Credit Agricole. We are a bit late, and we have, I think, over 100 slides. So excuse us, and we will try to be as quick as possible. And after the talk, in the break, and also in the networking part, we will be more than happy to answer all the questions about it. So we will elaborate for you everything that you want. So let's go. I'm Mateusz, and I'm head of mobile at LeanCode. You've probably known me because I'm one of the co-founder of Flutter Warsaw, also co-organizing with Maciej on the live streams. Been with Flutter since the early beta.
And I'm Jacob, aka Fiałek. I'm head of backend at LeanCode, but for the duration of the Credit Agricole banking app, I was doing mobile full-time.
Okay, so let's set some terms first. What it means for us that we delivered a large project, what it means for a project to be small or large. So small projects for us are approximately projects that you do for 2 months with 2 people, typically. So in this type of projects, you know almost every piece of code when you are a developer. Also, you got similar business knowledge to your friend that is your coworker on the project. Probably there is a big chance that also a backend developer also sits by your side, so you can communicate with them instantly in real world, and you don't have to care about that. So what are large projects? There is code that you have never seen after a year probably, and it's completely normal. You, for example, work on loans. We are now talking in banking business domains. So for example, you've been working on loans, but you don't know anything about Loyalty Club, and you may even not know that Loyalty Club was there, but it was like over a year or something like that, but you are on the loan team, so you are only focused on one business domain. There's hundreds of people involved, and each of them work in a different way. So we are talking not only about developers, we are talking about business people, product owners, about domain experts from banking that typically work in whole different workflow, and they don't know what agile is and what software development practices are, and so on and so on. Or some people like translators who don't even know what you do in your day-to-day basis at work. So let's tame it. What was our project? We still have over 20 Flutter developers in over 10 squads. So I will not elaborate on that because Tomek already said. 2 special squads. Most of the squads are focused on delivering business value in their own respective business domains. And 2 squads are special in here, so it's squad number 1, overall design. Albert will talk about that. And platform and framework, squad number 13. This was me and Fiałek among the squad, also other people. And it was the squad that had some kind of overseeing the technical side of our project. So just to remind, over 200 people involved in the project. Okay, so let's deliver it. So how can we deliver a large project? So we divided it into 10 chapters. I don't like agendas, but people say that you always have to have an agenda, so you have an agenda in here. Okay, so there are 10 key concepts that helped us deliver, but there are no silver bullets, and I think that everyone who is a developer also knows that here, that these just are things that helped us. They may help you, but they may not. So, you know, always think about it. Okay, so let's start from code ownership.
Yeah, and code ownership is seemingly a simple thing. In a small project, this is like normal. You contribute code to the code base, you own the repository, you are responsible for everything basically. You fix bugs there, you add new features, you maintain the code to conform to the newest standards, you basically own the code completely. But that might not be true in a project that is done by more than 20 Flutter developers at once, because we, in this app, had a single code base. We did create a single app in a single repository, and just extrapolating the rule that if you contribute code to the code base, you own the code base, it does not work, because if everyone is responsible for everything, then they will be responsible basically for nothing, because everyone will find some excuse to not maintain the code, because always there will be someone else that is better suited to fix bugs there, to add new functionality there, especially if they are not like used to contributing code there, or are like not liking this particular part of the code base. So in application of this size, you have to find some way to enforce code ownership. And we needed to find some boundaries there, but these boundaries basically means that we need to introduce explicit code ownership. We need to disallow this no man's land kind of thing that you have too many people seemingly responsible for the same code. You need to find some, like basically silver bullet, but maybe not silver bullet, to distribute the ownership across the company. Some ground rules before we jump into dividing the project into things that will work for us. Let's put some ground rules. And the first one is that every piece of code should be owned by a team, not by a single person. The team needs to be responsible for the code, because a person can change team, and if they change team, the knowledge of the code will go with them, but their new manager will probably don't want to have anything to do with the old code base. So you need to like preserve the responsibility for the code base to a team. And if we lose the responsibility, if a person leaves, for example, the code will be basically lost. But what do I mean by responsibility? Because that's crucial here. First and foremost, the team, will maintain the code. And it means basically maintaining the code, but also maintaining the code in terms of business and keeping it up to date and fixing bugs there and developing new features there and doing everything that relates to the code. Not only coding, but all the necessary groundwork to keep it up to date. But it does not mean that they will be the only one allowed to contribute new code there. We still can allow anyone in the company to contribute new code there, but they are still responsible for the code, so they have the final word in accepting the code. And also, this is a rule that should not have exceptions. Although I'm quite pragmatic when it comes to the rules, this one, if broken, will result in very bad experience for all the involved. So, going back to boundaries, how to define them. In a small project, your boundary is basically the repository, the whole code base. You own the code base, and that's simple. In a mobile app done by 2 people in two months, it's like basically the whole app. When it comes to backend, this might be a microservice or something like that. But here, when we have more than 20 people involved, that's basically not possible. So we need to put some artificial boundaries, artificial walls. And for us, the thing that worked was to divide the project into packages, but not packages deployed to pub, published on pub, not packages split across multiple repo, just normal local packages in a single repository that you reference basically freely across different teams, and you can use whatever different team wants to be used. And this puts enough walls between teams so that you can have clear ownership, but the walls are not so high so that anyone that wants to see your code can see it by just clicking through your IDE. This is basically enough, and it does not introduce too many problems. But there's always some sith. There's always some form of common code. You have your API access standardized, you have standardized formatting, you have standardized validation logic, error handling, and whatnot. And this code is basically common because everyone wants something from it, and everyone needs to contribute to it because it will change between different teams, but you still want to have some standardization. And the other problem is that there needs to be a single entry point. So we will always have the app package where you need to bootstrap your whole application. And it is also a place that everyone wants to contribute to, everyone has some say in it, but that's, like I said, you can't allow multiple ownership on a package. So they still need to be owned. We don't want multiple teams to own it, so we need to find someone. And for us, this was the technical team, the framework squad that was responsible for the code that no one else wants. And they were the ones that had the final say in accepting code to the application, as in the entry point of the application. And they, we basically, had the final word in accepting new code to a common ground. But because at the end of the day, someone always has to be responsible. So we now know how to put the ownership on a code, but how to divide the code, really.
Okay, so let's go to the project structure. So we got our code ownership rules. We are going further into development of the project. We want to have some consistent project structure so that everyone across those 10+ squads know how we do things. So we can look at project structure in a lot of very different ways. And when we make our little pet project, it won't bite us soon. Even if it will, then still we are okay with that. And with large projects, we have to really overthink it because it's pretty hard to refactor. So project structure is something that is a bit controversial because you've probably accustomed to layers. This word is really popular. You've probably seen it a million times in different configurations, different meanings, and so on and so on. And about layering things, about layering your architecture, not only in mobile, but throughout whole software development. So let's look at this example. So we got 3 business domains in here, banking domains, transfers, loans, and benefits. So as you can see, we have some transfers page, our UI. We have some transfers qubit or some other state management to somehow make our application logic, our presentation logic, and we got some data source like transfers repository. So we have these 3 layers, and we call it horizontal division at LeanCode. We Fiołek call it horizontal because it looks like horizontal. And as you can see, it's clear. Maybe it may be clear for us when we look at it to divide it in such packages like repositories package with all the repositories, application logic package with all the blocks and qubits and some business logic classes and all the UI in other package. But there is one significant question that Fiołek already asked about ownership. So who owns the package? So let's try to answer it, right? And to answer it, we can remind ourselves with a famous aphorism that famous in software development that can really help us in a few situations, not only this one, and you will see it later. So it goes like this. Any organization that designs a system will produce a design whose structure is a copy of the organization's communication structure. What is important here is that whatever we will do in our system, the structure of this system, of this project, will be a copy of structure of communication. So, okay, if it's true, let's not fight it. Let's try to relate our situation to this. And let's remind, we have more than 200 people involved in the project. So how do we communicate in this agile squads, as Tomek and Kasia said, in this agile seamless tribe? How do we communicate on a daily basis? And daily is a keyword here, actually, because is there a repository squad daily? Not at all. Is there a data source daily, UI daily, something like that? No, it's like unnecessary, and no one would think about it, actually. But actually, there's a payment squad daily, lending squad daily, value-added services squad daily, because there are payments business experts, people from the other side of company that depend on us, often people from other companies that we depend on, or they depend on us, just because we are all connected to one business domain. So it's really business domain driven. It's all about payments in our squad. So we have payment squad daily. So let's try to project our communication model onto our code. So let's try to make it in a different way, orthogonal to that. So let's try to do this vertical division. So the same classes, because this is the same code. It's only the matter of communication and organizing things. So let's try to make transfers package with all the stuff that is related to transfers, loans package that is only related to loans, and so on and so on and so on. Now, if I am looking at that code, I know who I can turn to about this code because it's owned by that squad, and I can just find people from that squad and just connect with them and get knowledge I was looking for. So actually there might be a couple more, like you can have a couple of packages per squad, why not? The one thing that is important, and Fiołek already emphasized, is to have one owner of the package. So you can own many packages, but the package can be only owned by one squad. Okay, so let's actually start working on the project. We made a lot of decisions, and we didn't even start writing the code. So we start the project but after first week, when 15 squads start their work, they want to code, people are ready and hungry for making those business value. And we got minimum, like at least 15, 20 packages in our repository according to that division. So we look at this. This is just like, I don't think a half, maybe less than a half of packages or something like that. And let's think about, for example, running tests in every package that has tests, or format code in every package that we want to based on some filter that we want to apply. It's really cumbersome and it's really depressing. So let's define what actually we want to do. We want to run things in a multi-package environment. We want a task runner because there is already a thing for that, and it's called task runner. So we want a task runner, and it would be really nice if this task runner would work well with Dart. And actually, there is such a thing, and it's called Melos by Invertase, and really recommend it. We use it in Credit Agricole. It's basically a tool for managing Dart projects with multiple packages. So you just can run Flutter test in all the packages that actually have test directory, because otherwise you will get some errors because you don't have tests in that package and so on and so on. And it's really making things easier when you have a lot of packages. So it doesn't have to be Melos. It's just we need a task runner, right? And we had scripts for running pubget, cleaning, running some localization scripts, testing, also reconciling dependency versions to be sure that we have the same versions of some packages across the code, formatting, analyzing, running build runner, right, where applicable. So you know what I mean. So TLDR is you need a task runner. Okay, so we can start coding, but how do we communicate across squads?
Yeah, we have our multiple packages. We know who to turn to if I need a card or I need an account or I need like do a transfer. But I know who to turn to. I don't know how to make a transfer. They only know that, and we need some way to like ask them or make them do it inside the app. Because if we have 10 plus business teams, business squads that are basically covering different verticals of the app, there can't be a place where there isn't a world where you have 10 totally separate features. There will be places where you need data from other teams, and there will be actions that you do that will invalidate data in other teams. For example, when we have like the basic feature, the transactions list, there's a filters there, and one of the filters is a card selector. So we can filter the transactions list by card. So what transactions did you do with this particular card? So, but you're just managing transactions. You don't know a thing about cards, but you still need to display them because you own the screen, and you need to display it. So you need to ask the card squad to give you the cards. And the other way around, when I'm making a transaction, I probably need to authorize it. So I probably need someone else to do the authorization because I'm just making a transaction. I'm not doing the authorization process. And when I did already the transaction, I probably want to say to someone that I did the transaction because I know that somewhere in the app there's a balance of the account displayed, and I need them to update the balance because I just made a transaction. So we need to communicate in code. And as I said, with these examples, there are basically 3 cases. And one is that I need some data right away. I need it now. I need the cards list now. I need someone else to do something right now, like I need to authorize this transaction. And the third one is that I did something. I did the transaction, and I know that probably someone will want to know that I did the transaction, but I don't really care if what happens, when it happens, and who does it. So these 3 cases can be then divided into 2 groups, basically. The synchronous one, so something is done right away, and asynchronous one, where something happens, but I don't care when or what. And this is basically our solution to this problem. We know that we have 3 cases that we need to cover, and we probably need some escape hatch if we just underanalyzed and there is something else that needs to be tackled. And our solution is based on something that we called facades, sorry. And the first one is synchronous one, the one that gives the data or does something right away. And it must follow in our code base 2 rules. The first one is if we want to expose some data, we want to expose them as streams. Not normal, like ordinary stream controller streams, probably the ones based on behavior subject. Because we want the teams that consume this stream to know that the data is there. And we want to hide the intricate details of getting the data or handling errors from the teams that use the data. We want to just give them the data. And the other point is handled just by methods. Ordinary methods with like free signatures, you can put there whatever you like. This is our escape hatch if we need to do something differently, if we need to do some action somewhere, because you can't basically constrain everything, and too many constraints will result in like basically bad code. So we handled our synchronous case, and then we have the asynchronous case, where we need to inform the world that something happened. And we do so also with streams, but streams of events. Event is something that is basically a domain thing that you want the world to know about. In case of transactions, it's like transaction made, payment made, whatever you call it, that just covers the basic data of the transaction, so source account, destination account, and the amount of the transaction. And we also expose it as streams, but now like normal stream controller-based streams where you just publish the event, and if it's not handled right away, if someone is not listening for the event, it will just disappear because you don't want the event to be persisted, you don't want to do anything because the main purpose of these events is to just update some UI, probably. But I lied a little bit. These three cases are not the only one. There's also a navigation.
Yes, so navigation is also a form of cross-squad communication, since we have to probably navigate throughout the whole app, and there will be a lot of cases when we want to navigate from basically one squad's page to another squad's page. So how did we approach it? It is a cross-squad communication, and it has the same constraints of code ownership as we said earlier. So let's try to relate to that, and let's describe the challenges we have in here. So we want to have cross-squad navigation. We want to be able to pass context data with navigation to the targets, so that I want to, for example, navigate to this particular account details. We want to be able to have pages that contain elements from multiple squads. For example, as you will be able to see in the second room where there will be the app live running on the screen, you will see that the main dashboard of the application is basically the screen that contains elements from, like, I think half the squads or something like that in the domain matter. So we have to be able to do that. Also, it would be really nice to nest navigation. It's not so crucial, but it would be nice. And deep linking, this is really important because in the world of marketing people, there will be a day in the project when they will come and say, hey, I want to send some push notification that basically takes you from one place in the app to some other, and I would like to go everywhere that I want to. So let's make some navigation solution that allows us to do anything we want. And we can hope that they won't come, but we know deeply in our hearts that they will come one day, and they will be really excited to push this solution on us. Okay, so our solution is just to, in our case, what was enough for us, it was just a thin abstraction layer above Flutter navigation, because Flutter navigation is cool, and why reinvent the wheel? It's okay, and we have to use that, and there's nothing wrong with Flutter navigation, but we also have to apply our code constraints, code ownership, and so on, so that we don't have to break our rules just to use Flutter Navigator. So we made a thin abstraction layer over that. As you can see, we have some app navigator, and we can navigate to some target, and we introduce the word target to something abstract that it's not connected, as like this term is not connected to some implementation, it's just connected to our intent to go to some wealth page. And also we can pass some data. Why not? Because it's strongly typed. We really love strongly typed systems at LeanCode. You will see it in next chapters also. And on the other side, it's really pretty straightforward and simple. On the other side, in private squads, because the targets are common for everyone, because everyone has to have access in code to every target in the app, so we can navigate throughout the whole app. But we don't want to know, and we don't want to be able to pick how and abuse the knowledge that we know, how it's implemented in some other squad. So we basically move the implementations that we, for example, call page builders to private squad packages, so that if I'm in a different squad, I can't abuse it and I can't introduce more corruption. But like in the deep, it's actually just using material pages, material navigators, and so on and so on. And it's pretty simple. What were the trade-offs? Because there are always some trade-offs. The pros is the separation of consents, because we wanted to separate the targets from implementations and just be able to set this abstract term, I want to go somewhere. And so that targets are defined in a navigation package, CABP navigation, that it's that every other package can depend on, and I don't have to explicitly depend on accounts or or loans, because I actually, in the business way, I don't depend on them. I just want to have a way to move there. I don't depend on their data or something like that. Strongly typed target arguments, as I said, and since it's our abstraction layer, we can to make things easier or make some shortcuts, we can also make it available without context. But the cons are that private squad types cannot be used in targets, since CABP navigation package can't depend on other private packages, because it would, end up in transitive dependency from our loans to, for example, benefits club, and our loans package, we don't want it to be related to that other package, so we cannot use private squad types. This is the one bad side. And also, since every abstraction is leaky, as Joel Spolsky, the creator of Stack Overflow, said in his law of abstractions, every abstraction is leaky, and this abstraction also leaks, so we cannot do everything that Flutter Navigator can, because we just constrained ourselves. But it's okay, because we don't expose it to the rest of Flutter world or something. We don't make some general navigation package. We just make navigation package that is related only to our Credit Agricole domain. So actually, we can change that abstraction if we want to, and if it's really needed. So it's actually not so much of a bad thing. Okay, so hindsight is 2020. In Polish we say mądry Polak po szkodzie. But navigation is very expensive to change later, since it's this, red area that affects every single squad, every single developer. And there's a lot of refactoring that's not really, how to say it, not really pleasant to do. And we have to have that in the back of our heads. So consider using some navigation package like Go Router or just some navigation package, and just check for yourself if it's okay. And if it's not, and if you need some constraints, just make some thin abstraction layer over that and constrain yourselves. But you don't have to reinvent the whole navigation to constrain yourself. So yeah, consider that and have that in your head. So the next big topic, as we said in the agenda, after the communication, is localization, because banking apps typically offer more than one language, one locale, because it's not only about languages, and also there is an amazing talk about it from Albert Wolszon from Flutter Warsaw. And localization is really important. What does it mean to localize things? Basically, I think that probably all of you know, but just to remind, we all have some values that are statically define throughout the whole application. For example, some strings, get to know Credit Agricole, available funds, go to store, and so on and so on. We want to be able to put it in some specific locale of the user's device or of their own choice. So we have over 5,500 strings to localize in our app, spread across more than 12 squads, and spread across developers, product owners, business people, translators, and this gives us a hunch that it's not a developer thing anymore, because it's not only affecting us developers, it affects a lot of people in the project. And we need a single source of truth for that, because we also always need a single source of truth for everything in every kind of domain, not only programming. Like our blessed Jira tool, that I think everyone has opinion on Jira, maybe bad, maybe good, but we have to have some kind of Jira to, work with each other. And also with localization, we would like to have this single source of truth, but we have to ask ourselves, is it owned by business or development, like localization? Because for us, it's more owned by people that define it, and that people that define how things are localized, what is localized and what's not localized, what needs to be formatted in such a way like money, or in every locale you can have different separators and commas and so on and so on. It's really, really difficult. And it's actually not even a developer thing, it's just a thing that exists in many different locales, and it's actually related more to business and to people that are related to that domain than as developers. So we can't use source code as the truth. We can only relate in the code to that truth. We can project the truth in the code. So we also want to use ARB files, the Flutter blessed way of localizing things. We want to use Flutter localizations. We want to be as Flutter as possible, and so on and so on. We want to use all the good things. So we want some tool, and actually, don't worry, I know that probably most of you already know that, but there is already a tool for that. And it's called Translation Management System. And there are a lot of this type of tools. We used Phrase in Credit Agricole. As you can see, this is just a web interface for Phrase, and you can see that we have more than 5,000 results, and we have some terms, some translations, some context of that. We can add screenshots, we can add description, tags, comments, track activity, and so on and so on. So it's a whole different domain, and you wouldn't even think that you can do such many things with strings. So as a developer, what do we want? We want to be able to easily synchronize whenever business needs it. So just my product owner comes to me and tells me, hey, download new localizations because I changed the strings. And I want to say, yeah, of course, it's super easy. I can just download it, make a pull request, and go back to actual work, and not because they will come after half an hour and say, hey, I made a typo with a comma, so do it again. So yeah, I want to just synchronize easily. So TMS is for that, and TMS, all of TMS tools have features like review workflow for translators, placeholders support, plural support, versioning, so we can keep track of versions of some strings. Also, some of them have some branching systems, so we can put the whole versions of all the localizations. But also translation memory for our translators, because translators are really used to have translation memory, because they work, for example, for Credit Agricole, and they made already a couple of projects with Credit Agricole. And for example, if we use some term like loan or to borrow, to lend, they already have translations for that already had been approved, with native speakers, with business people, and so on and so on. So they want to have that. They want to have the glossaries, tagging, and so on and so on. That's why we need a separate tool. And just to look at it from Phrase, you can see that the whole advanced review workflow is really complex, and the developer is only a small part of that. That's why it's not owned by us, but other people. And very important thing, check out the trial version first, because every TMS tool is different, and it's really easy to slip on that like on a banana peel, really. So don't pay until you are really sure that it works with your, especially Flutter ARBs. It can be really painful. Okay, so let's go to another thing from our agenda, automatic UI tests.
Yeah, we know how to build the app, or at least parts of the app, and now we want to know how to test it. And we all know that tests are great. UI tests are great, and they allow you to simplify like a repetitive testing. They allow you to lessen the number of regression bugs. They give you instant feedback or semi-instant feedback about existing features in the app that you might inadvertently broken in the meantime. But in Flutter world, we have like the de facto solution for that, and it's combination of Flutter driver for Flutter parts and Appium for the native ones, and it's all orchestrated by Appium. But it works, but it's kinda works. It kinda works. It has its problems. It's not so ergonomic to use, and it has it is quite powerful, but it has one big problem. You need to have keys to identify widgets in the app. And because probably your testers team is a separate team, probably in different department, you have to have a procedure to add the keys, because you either have to key every widget in your app, or you don't do it and you just want to be told what keys to add. But after you finished your feature, you probably don't have time to add the keys. So it's like a broken cycle. Testers require keys to write the tests, but developers don't have time to add them. So you don't have UI tests, and as we all know, UI tests are great. So to solve this, you basically have to have UI tests as part of your Scrum team. They need to work along with you. The testers need to work with you. And they have to have the same goals. So UI tests have to be part of the acceptance criteria of every user story. You need to force that on your teams, because that's the only way to make it work. Otherwise, someone will have problems with making them, or you will basically have broken tests all the time, because something will change and your tests will not change with them. The other thing that I want to tell you about today is contracts, something that's maybe not simple, but it's everywhere in apps. And probably in every app there is some kind of JSON API. This might be REST, it might be REST-ish, it might be RESTful, it might be GraphQL, it might be anything in between. But every kind of API has the same requirements, the same problems. So the API needs to be understood both by the creators, so the backend team, and the consumers, so the mobile developers. And also the API needs to be discoverable, easily discoverable. The mobile team, the Flutter developers should not ask each and every time the backend team what request to use to fulfill some basic need of the user. And probably to make it more ergonomic, you need to enforce flows. You need to have a way to tell the mobile team, the mobile devs, to make a second request after the first one because something else needs to happen. You sometimes don't want to do it, and it's better to have a single request, but sometimes you have to do it, and there are some other reasons so that it splits. So you need a way to enforce that. And probably your API should follow standards, and the standards needs to be the same across different teams, different squads, both in terms of how the API looks and how it is consumed. There are currently multiple ways to document and define the API. One of the standards is on OpenAPI or GraphQL, and you can use that, but sometimes that's an overkill. And sometimes it's better to come up with something that you own, you as a project own. And in our case, we used something that probably we called strongly typed contracts. So you basically, since backend designs the API They save the request. They have the most business knowledge when it comes to the flows that they need to do in other systems. They write their requests. They write the structure of requests. They write the handlers. They know what kind of security they need to enforce. They know what they can show you and what not to show you. Then let them write not only the handlers and the types, the request definitions, let them write everything. And by write everything, I don't mean to write it manually. Let's generate Dart clients, but Dart clients not based on OpenAPI or GraphQL. Dart clients based directly on the backend code that they already written. They have to write before they write the handlers. Let's use that. Let not use anything in between. So in our case, every endpoint, every request looked basically like that. So we have a Dart class that extends some kind of request. We know what it will result, what the result will be. We know what it takes, we know what type of data it takes, and we can use just the type system to guide us on how to use the request and what flow we have. And we basically, during the initial time in the project, during the start of the project, we sat with the backend team and decided what the Dart client will look like, and now they are just generating the clients for us without our intervention whatsoever. It's not a silver bullet because you need to write the generator. You need to write. You need to come up with the design that you really want, and you will probably need to tweak it along the way. You still need to tackle versioning of the API. It's JSON underneath somewhere, so you still need to conform to that. Sometimes the types might not work, but it's still a gigantic net plus because sometimes it's better to reinvent the wheel. And sometimes it's better to make it work the way you want to. And at LeanCode, both in terms of UI tests and strongly typed contracts, we have something for you. We're building something that might help here. So talk with us, please, after the presentation to learn more.
OK, so let's go further, because we are short on time. And let's discuss the last, maybe not last, but yeah, the last thing. We've been developing the app already for a while, for example, a couple of months, all thinking about the release coming sooner and sooner. And we have to cope with a couple of things. We have to cope with the fact that your code is already legacy after you committed it. And it's inevitable. It's true. You cannot avoid it, but you can tame it. So especially when you have a lot of developers that are changing, that business features are changing, and everything is really changing around us, we have to consider that. Because business assumptions change. And this is like one of the first reasons why Agile movement happened and all the Scrum methodology, because business assumptions change continuously and will change even more, and we can cope with that. And one thing, I think the most important thing that the takeaway for us was to deprecate things. And if we notice that we can do things in a bit different way, and we cannot do things in old way because something happened, something changed, that it's not straight not from our side, but maybe from our dependency, like business or some other things that happen in the project, we have to tell everyone, hey, let's deprecate it. And Dart has this feature of deprecated annotation, so we can do it. Pretty much every language has tools for that. And it is annoying. It was really annoying for me when Albert from the design squad deprecated a lot of UI components because designers had a different idea for that and a different idea for doing such things and so on and so on. But it's really a blessing, and I would really, I can thank him now. I thank you, Albert, because it's really, really helpful. It's really a blessing for the whole team. But really make sure you do. Make sure you do, because if we don't play by the rules, why even make rules? We have to obey the rules that we create by ourselves. So how to really make sure? We can organize weekly status meetings and keep track. So that's why we have technical squad, to provide a group of people that nobody likes and that is accountable for things that everyone has to do. And because still somebody must own it, like Fioek said in the beginning. So let's own this sad thing of reminding people, hey, it's deprecated, and you have to really, really fix that and not use that. And like you have a week, and in a week we will make a status meeting and check if you really don't use deprecated things anymore. So synchronize across squads on a regular basis, and this is important not only with deprecations, with everything. Without that, I think we couldn't do anything in a group of more than 20 people. Really, it would be a huge chaos, and because a lot of things that we wanted to tell you with this talk is that with so many people, you will have to accept that it will introduce corruption across code, project organization, communication, and so on. But it's okay, we have to accept that. But hey, we can think, how can we constrain it? How can we put it in our own rules? And this whole presentation is about it. How to tame this scale. And this is Flutter at scale. And the last but not least is the design system. Because you remember Conway's law. The communication is also in design, inconsistencies in design across the app, propagate to code, propagate to corruption in our code, to things that a year later would end up in making the whole Credit Agricole app inconsistent. We cannot allow that, right? We have to think how to constrain it. And that's why we have a talk about design system today, right after the break from Albert Wolszon. All right, thank you very much. Have you got any questions? We need Łukasz or someone who would be the moderator.
So, I see a question.
So I have mainly two questions. I don't know how much time we have, so maybe I'll just skip the less interesting one. Yeah, so my main question is, you mentioned that you split your code base into packages, and you have this central package for navigation, or rather for targets.
For abstraction of navigation, yes.
Yeah, so I don't know if Dart or Pub handles circular dependencies between packages. So did you maybe have any issues with this? And did you have to, how did you overcome it or something like that?
I think, yes, we actually had something like that. And that's why we introduced the facades, because we didn't say it in here. It will be in the ebook, because there will be elaboration of all the things that we said. We split the packages into private and public. For example, if you had CABP lending package that it's in its own business domain, then we don't want to depend on that. But if we want to really depend business-wise on this squad, on lending squad, we create another package that is, for example, CABP lending public, that it's only for people, a code that depends on it, and then we can. It's, I think, the simplest way to break the circle in circular dependency. Just extract the things that you would like. The interface, yeah, the abstraction, the interface, because you are a lending squad, and you can say, and you can define what from the lending domain should be used by other people, and for those things, push it to this public interface, because the internals and how do we do loans and lending is our thing, and you can't depend on that because it would provide corruption. And for example, one of the things of corruption is circular dependencies. So we just push it to some public interface and allow people to use this public interface in any way that they want to, because it's still our way and it's still under our control. I think I don't know if it answers the questions.
Yes, it does. So let me just jump into the next one. Does your app work offline at all? And if yes, what did you use to persist the data?
I'm not sure. It works a bit, but in general, you cannot do much banking when you are offline. I think that you can see that you are already logged in. Okay, maybe Fiołek did more.
Yeah, there is a single feature that works offline, and you can like authorize transactions done in the e-bank on the web with offline mobile application. You scan the QR code that your mobile app is able to decode and generate the OTP token to authorize the app. But that's, I think, the only place that really works offline.
Maybe more. Sorry if we skipped something, but yeah. Basically, it's okay for us right now because the domain of banking is you have to be connected most of the times.
Okay, I'll skip the boring question. Thank you.
You can ask it after the break.
Yes. Since we are short on time, I'm going to just go for one more question. Okay.
So I have a question about security, because both presentations, I think, skipped both a lot of it. And I thought that in banking, there is a lot of money in security and all their stuff.
Yes.
So how much attention did you pay to the security, and what did you do in this area?
It's okay. I think that I will elaborate that after, but I can only say right now, to be short in time, that you are a client. When you are a mobile app, you are a client, a front end. So the majority of security of the system has to be done on the other side of the system. But you can self-protect, and actually there is a term of that. It's called Runtime Application Self-Protection. It's RASP, and it's a set of terms that it's mostly defined by OWASP organization, that it's known for people that are into security, and they have this mobile testing guide and all the guidelines. How can we self-protect against some malicious actions? But it's always about running after the rabbit and escaping the rabbit and so on and so on. If you get my metaphor, it's not real security. It's more like being able to hide better, but that's what I think security in front-end apps is all about. Because you cannot take someone else's money from our app because backend system wouldn't allow that. Yeah, but you can self-protect from such things as injecting some code, skipping some security. Routing protection, but also routing protection cannot be 100% perfect, because since you are the root, you can tell me that you are not root, right? So it's always about insecurity. I think I'm not an expert in that, but it's the most important thing is that me as a mobile app to not be able to change your money, for example, right?
Breaking the rules if I answer.
No, not at all.
Thank you. So the answer is simple, because the way how we are just approaching the securities is managed in a different way. And Mateusz already mentioned about the way how we are just dealing the security on my mobile application. So the RASP and the OWASP is something which is very important for us. So there are several things that during the implementation you do the wrapping of the application, and several things are double checked. So once you have the, I would say, rooted mobile device, you are not allowed to run the application. So this is one of the example, and that's why we believe that having the application very connected to being connected, I mean to the server, and all the application is secured by the backend side, there is much more security. That's why we are not investing much more in I would say, storing the data on the mobile application. We are just very relying on the security. We did several security tests. We asked many companies, not only one, but for doing the pen testing. We also have the backend for the application, which is very related to the previous version of the application. So the much of the code on the backend side is, I would say, still tested, validated, and so on, so on. So this is how we approach on the backend side, on the front end side.
Okay, so when it comes to Flutter, there is not much you actually like did more than just. You didn't have to
we
do
did
anything
obfuscation,
special.
I guess, obfuscation and splitting debug information, certificate pinning in terms of networking. So you have to somehow inject your things of doing in a networking stack. But it's all about being obscure more. And about Rasp, we can talk later about actually what Rasp is. But the most of things in Rasp is pretty native. But you know, Flutter app is also a native app, right? So you can do all those things. Yeah, pretty much, yes. Also, you are in ARM native code, so you have a couple of things easier maybe, since you don't have virtual machine. I don't know, maybe in terms of Flutter. I think obfuscation and splitting debug info and certificate pinning are the most crucial things that you can do on the Dart side.
Okay,
Maybe I forgot about something. Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All of you
thank
again.
so much for the question. Also, thank you to Tomek for clarifying it even more.
Yeah, so thank you all, and thanks for the presentation.
Thank you very much. Now we are moving for the questions from YouTube for Matti and Fioek, because now we have time since we're after all the presentations are finished. So perhaps let's start with the question, how do you keep the packages in private pub dev repos or Git repos?
Okay, it's working?
Yep.
You can answer.
Thank you, Mateusz. No, we do have a monorepo here. We keep every package in the same repository so that you don't need to like look into different places in the like. Yeah, and we do like monorepos, and you don't need to then look into different repositories and find what you're looking for. Just you have a single place where you have everything, and that gives you enormous possibilities to discover new code and do it. And we just used monorepo and local references to local packages.
Also, since the app is a one thing, so you know, CABP navigation package cannot exist without the whole CABP app. So why even making more repositories? Yeah. It's the whole one purpose of all the packages to just provide for one Credit Agricole app. So let's make one monorepo.
Yeah, so basically the purpose of the packages, if I understand correctly, is to just make everything separate, to enforce good coding practices, but not to publish them. And
boundaries,
yeah,
yes.
Exactly. Makes sense. So was there a separate tester team? What is the test coverage on banking app? I hope it's 100% or 200 at least.
500.
Oh.
No, there is a separate tester team.
Although they are parts of the squads.
They are parts of the squads. They are parts of our Scrum and Agile teams. They are provided by the bank. So we are not connected with them in any other way than through the project. And it's even better. I think it's even better. What's the coverage? I'm not sure. Maybe Tomek? No, I don't know. Okay, yeah. So I'm not sure. The coverage is enough to release the app. that's known for. Someone approved it. So yeah, test chapter. You know, it's agile. Yeah, so it's important to just. You know, there is test chapter. Test chapter lead said that it's enough. Then it's enough, and I don't know much more. Maybe, yeah. You want to elaborate? Okay, so let's. You know, I think you know more about the project.
Yes, it's right. The test was completely done. So Mateusz is right. We did the organization that we made two type of testers. One is the manual. which is very committed to testing end-to-end the business process. And for every test, we did several test cases. So the repository of the test cases is covering every functionality. We also have the critical path that we are just checking more frequently. So this is also done both from the perspective of the manual testing and then automation testing. For the automation testing, we still have something to do in order to increase the coverage of the testing. But in terms of regardless whether this is automatic or manual testing, this is for sure 100% testing. One thing which I would like to mention during the time, we just found the very specific edge cases during the testing, which we are during the decision of go, no go, where have some issues. Sometimes you feel that on the level of your ambitions, you see that this is a very critical element, but in the end of the day, when you just deploy the application, it seems that nobody touches that element. So it doesn't respond to the real needs of the application. So we are I have the feeling internally that we did even more than it's expected and it is perceived by the customers. So this is the approach.
Thanks for that elaboration.
So what is the test coverage?
We don't know the exact number. I'm sorry, sir. Yeah, we can check later.
So did the team use something like server pod, which generates the client depending upon the server adds the request?
You mean the contracts, right?
I guess, yes.
Yeah, so about the contracts, it's all about the backend, and we just, because it's important to have some agreements with other, developers, other companies, and we just agreed with the other company on with the backend developers that they will provide generated Dart files with Dart classes that contain requests. Yeah, and there's no server pod, there is no Dart packages, I think. I'm not sure how they do it internally. I'm not sure because we didn't talk about that. They just did it for us. We just agreed on some contracts, like, that's what contracts are for. We just agreed that they will provide Dart classes for every request and response for us from the API. And I think that it's made with some JVM-oriented languages, but they made the whole thing, and it was really a good agreement. Like, they provided everything that we wanted, pretty much. We wanted to have it like implement a equatable interface, because like in the middle of the project, Robert from our team thought that, hey, equatable interface would be really convenient. It's like, it's not, necessary. It's like a convenient thing. And they said like, okay, we can add this annotation. So I guess that they are really prepared for that requests, because they are really flexible, and if we want to add something, they will add it.
Sorry, maybe I will stay on the stage. Okay. Yes, there was one company I mentioned it. This is Savantgarde. Savantgarde also made the proof of concept of the Flutter team, so they will have also the capability of the Flutter. So that's why they were
and they have a couple of developers on our team also with developing Flutter.
So that's why it was easier for us just to let them to create such a contracts deployed and developed in Dart, so it was ready for developers to use, for the mobile developers.
Yeah, it's all the matters of the agreement. Just the end effect is that everyone is happy about it.
Right, and actually I've seen a question before on YouTube. What was the language that was used for the backend?
Java, I guess. Like, I guess 90% of banking in the world.
Right. Now, maybe a question that's perhaps also you, since you were on the team that nobody likes, but also Albert can answer.
Correct.
How and when do you run UI tests? Is there some automated CI/CD pipeline for that?
Yes, so I guess every hour we produce a automated build made with our Jenkins continuous deployment pipeline. and continuous integration, and then continuous deployment pipeline. And it, in the meantime, it also runs automated UI tests. And if a automated UI test package fails, then the build will fail. So for now, it runs for about an hour. I look at Peter because he, Piotrek is also with our technical squad and he knows it better. But I think that it runs for about an hour, and we are only deploying the build to testers, to manual testers, and the whole tribe on the tests environments only if automatic UI tests are passing. Only in these situations. And yeah, Tomek will elaborate.
No, I would like to please meet Piotr. Piotr is a product owner of Squad 13, the one which I just understood that is not. So if you have any question outside of this meeting, I mean, if we will be on this meeting, so please also meet Piotr. Piotr is ready to respond to some questions, technical questions, referring to this aspect that we have not covered during this question session.
And now I think this is the last question, which will wrap this up. So if all the features were a package, how did you manage external dependencies? Did you create wrappers for external dependencies in the form of a local package?
No, we considered this option to have a single package that references all other external dependencies, but we ended up using, like, every squad is able to select their dependencies. The only requirement of them is that we keep track of a single file in the repository with all the versions that we use, and we use malloc to reconciliate the versions in all the packages to be basically the same. We don't use any separate package. We allow any team to use what they need so that their IDE, their code completion is not bloated with things they don't need, basically.
But every package has to be accepted by us, the technical squad. So, because it's really important for the huge organization like the bank that no one imports some package that is unmaintained or that looks suspicious. That these are just casual, simple things that technical squad should do. Like, look at the package and say, okay, it seems to be maintained, or hey, it's not maintained from the Dart 1.0. So what is all about? Yeah. So yeah. It's like sanity check. It's all about sanity check. But yeah, if you add another package, and if technical squad approves the package, then we add it to our versions.yaml file that is used as a single source of truth for all the versions of the all packages used in the project. I hope that answers the question.
For me, it definitely does. I hope to the person asking the question it does too. So thank you very much for these additional answers and also for the presentation.